Hello, my name is Naomi Richardson, and welcome to another episode of the Power Chat series. This episode is Below the Surface Vulnerability and Healing. Um, September is Suicide Awareness Month, so I want to acknowledge my older brother, Judah Richardson, who passed July 17th of this year. My brother was probably the smartest person I know. I would always call him a genius because his mindset and his capabilities was that of a genius. He went to Michigan State University, majoring in mechanical engineering, and he also worked at Tesla. And I just want to say that suicide is something that everyone needs to know about and like continue to think about. And my brother was probably my closest friend. And yeah, I'll see him again soon.
Mm-mm. I think we lost her for a second.
Sorry about that. My screen glitched out, so I apologize. Can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Okay. So yeah, that is my quick little story about my brother, and may he rest in peace. My guest today is Andrea Burks, a mental health advocate and a Detroit native with a Bachelor of Science in Communications and Marketing, as well as a Master of Science in Public Health and in Public and Health Administration from Eastern Michigan University. Let's get started. How are you today?
I am doing very well. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, thank you.
So,
If you'd like to talk to us about what you do in your career, that would be great.
sure. My name is Andrea B. As Naomi said, I am the founder of Healing Through Vulnerability, which is a mental health and wellness brand that I actually formed during the middle of my mental health crisis last year. Prior to taking over my own business, I was a case manager in welfare with the state of Michigan, as well as a assistant supervisor with that. So I pretty much worked in social services my entire career, assisting others, who needed help. But after last year and having my crisis, I found that there was a need in the community, particularly here in Michigan, to start making people more aware of what is really going on when it comes to mental health. And so healing through vulnerability has been my forefront for the better half of a year and a half. Within that business or within my organization, we've started what is called the Hope Jar, which is a women's empowerment community. We talk about our mental health. We give encouragement, inspiration, empowerment. We also give resources. It's for all women. A safe space for us to be our authentic and vulnerable selves, so that we do feel as though we have someone that can support us when we are going through our most difficult times. So that's primarily what I do now. I'm a huge and very ferocious or strong mental health and wellness advocate, especially for women. Um, so goal is just to continue to make sure that we are breaking the silence as well as breaking the stigma of mental illness, because that is definitely what comes along with it once you start speaking up and advocating for yourself. So we want to make sure everyone feels safe enough to ask for help when the time comes.
Thank you. Okay, let's start with the first question. So the title of this episode is titled "Below the Surface," and I really want to delve deep into the conversation. As someone who has and struggles with mental illnesses, I think it's important to bring caution to the wind about the stigma of mental health in the Black community, and mainly for Black women. Why is there a stigma in the Black community, and why are Black women a target?
So I always take this question back when the fact that especially Black families back then, we were never told, or we're kind of shielded from the idea of what mental health is. It is considered a weakness in our community. It's considered emotional in our community. And normally, because we are such advocates when it comes to going to church, uh, they want us to pray it away. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
us, not all, but most of us have been raised in the belief that if you are struggling in any area of your life, it's simply because of some sin that you've committed, and you need to go to God and ask Him to help you with your sin. It's not the fact
Yeah.
that no, I possibly had traumas inflicted on me as a kid and they were swept under the rug and ignored. It's not because of the fact that I possibly have something that's genetic. It's not because of the fact that I have a chemical imbalance in my brain. It's simply
Yeah.
because I committed some sin and God is not pleased with me. And because of that, a lot of us are refusing to go seek some help. Or we've gone to family and we've made comments or statements, or we've done things that more than likely are not in character, and they've been ignored because, oh, we all have issues. We have a
Yeah.
huge tendency in our community to compare traumas, to compare
Yes.
what our situations are. And so the minute someone is vocalizing, no, this is a real struggle of mine. I do not feel normal. I do not feel right. I do not want to be sad or depressed. I do not want to have my energy depleted. I don't want to be upset about a situation. I don't want to keep playing over something that's happened to me. But because we are so plagued with, well, that's weak. Going to therapy means you're weak. Going to therapy means you're emotional. Uh, you don't have anything wrong with me. We silence ourselves because we don't see that there's a point of talking about our struggles because we're going to be judged for them. Someone's going to go on there and say, well, you just need a better job if you're stressing about your finances. Well, you just need
Yeah.
to go to the gym if you're upset about your weight. Or you need to go to school if you're upset about your life circumstances and you can't seem to progress in life, or you're lazy. I've heard that a million times throughout my journey with depression
Yeah.
is you are a lazy individual. Some of them even correlate that to us being what's the lack of a better, I don't want to say stupid, but educationally deficient, or we're not smart enough. We don't
Yeah.
understand what's going on with the world. We just need more guidance. Um, and that's just not simply the case. It's not simply the case. Um, we should be advocating for us to be able to break the silence and break those stigmas so that more people will come out and get help. I recently heard in our research that there is an uptick of individuals who are struggling with mental health and are dealing with suicidal thoughts and suicidal ideations every week. There's about 3,000 phone calls that go to the Detroit Police Department because of an active suicidal attempt. 3,000 calls to the police and fire for active suicidal. And these are probably individuals who have been dealing with their mental health for a while, who have shown
Yeah.
signs of their struggles, but they are completely ignored, or they are judged. Men and women in particular, because women are, we're told we're supposed to be strong, and if we
Yeah.
show any type of emotion, then oh, we're emotional, or we're psycho, we're crazy because we're responding to the pain and the trauma that was inflicted. There's
Yeah.
no grace given for women, especially Black women. We are literally a group of women that have been thrown to the bottom of the ocean, and we are being told that we have to figure out how to swim back to the top on our own, especially when it comes to mental health. It doesn't it's never grace given because we're overwhelmed. We have children, we have to work, we have stressors. We're trying to make sure we're supporting our men. We are trying to make sure that we are whatever the status quo is, been established to
Yeah.
be, which is working these full-time jobs and taking care of these kids and these households, making sure we always put ourselves to the back burner. We don't
Yeah.
we don't have time or an opportunity to enact self-care. And in that, situation, we end up forgetting who we are. We stop loving ourselves. We are hard on ourselves. We don't know how to show emotion because we're not allowed to. Um, because we're supposed to bring it together. We are literally the matriarchs of our family. And
Yes.
so we are being looked at as we have to be strong. We are looked at as we have to be those that are emotionally capable of handling anything that comes to us. And that's not always the case. You
Yeah.
always hear the term strong Black woman, and people take that and run with it. But it's a lot of days you don't want to always feel like you have to be the strong one. There's a lot of
Yeah.
times you always are tired, but we aren't given the grace to just breathe, to not feel
Yeah.
strong. So I think with that, it's a lot of why you're seeing such an uptick in these phone calls. A lot of the calls are women, and a lot of them that are in these mental hospitals or institutions are women,
Yeah.
because we're told we have to be strong and we just don't have it in us anymore.
Yeah.
So
Um, Transparency and vulnerability is one of the most vital subjects when it comes to mental health, and many shy away from it due to fear of shame and guilt from families and peers. What was your journey like in terms of becoming face to face with your struggles and deciding that now was the time to be vulnerable and transparent about who you are as a Black woman who has a mental illness?
So I talk about this a lot. My dad was one of those individuals that he was under the belief that I didn't have any issues. I knew something wasn't right with me when I was in high school. I suffered with anxiety. I went to Cass Technical High School. It was a very large school. I came from a very small private middle school, and I instantly had so much anxiety my freshman year. And at the time, I didn't realize it was a strong case of anxiety, but I knew something wasn't right with me then. I ended up going through a breakup my senior year, and I had difficulties coping with that breakup. He had cheated on me. It was right before prom. And I showed signs of my depressive disorder then. But back then, they didn't diagnose you in your early age. They didn't diagnose you in high school with depression. They didn't diagnose you in middle school. A lot of times they would sweep it under the rug as something hormonal. It's just a teen thing,
Yeah.
you'll grow out of it. And because of the way your health insurance was set up back then, you did not want to have a diagnosis of anything on your insurance, because once it was time for you to come off of it, you would struggle trying to get your own health insurance. And so for a long time, um, my dad is especially just didn't think anything was wrong. I think at 13, I went to my first therapy appointment. I was being bullied in middle school, and I had an eating disorder. I was dealing with bulimia at that time. And my therapist at the time wanted me to keep coming to therapy. And my dad said, no, there's nothing wrong with this girl. And I never forget how I had to pretend that I didn't have any problems. I had to go through high school pretending that there was nothing wrong with me. My dad didn't understand why I didn't want to try out for anything, why I was scared to go to certain events at school. But I had anxiety. I large crowds make me extremely anxious. So for years, I had to pretend that I didn't have problems. I had to pretend in church because I was deeply raised in the church. And back then it was like, okay, well, maybe you sinned, so let's go to the altar.
Yeah.
Or they brushed it off as a behavioral issue. Um, so for a while I had to fake the funk. I didn't start showing real signs of my depressive disorder until I got to college. I was 19. I was in my dorm room. I was struggling in my classes. I was a pre-med major at the time. I couldn't understand why I could not focus enough to pass my classes. I didn't understand why I wanted to self isolate so bad in my dorm. My roommate, to the point we didn't even get along. We did not like each other because I would not go out. I just could not find the energy or the mental capacity to be able to handle going out in these crowds. And I went to a Christian college. So, she's like, well, we got to go party when we can because some of this stuff is a violation. So, but I didn't show signs of like real extreme depressive disorder until I hit college. I wasn't talking to my dad at the time. He had cut me off because of my choice of school. I wasn't getting along with my family. The cousin I had there, we weren't getting along, and I just felt alone in that moment.
Yeah.
And I remember my thoughts taking over. I just remember being depressed, and I had my first suicidal attempt in my dorm room. Um, for years after that, I was very quiet about it. I was ashamed. I was ashamed that I allowed my mental health to decline so to the point where I felt like I didn't deserve to live. And so when I transferred back to Eastern Michigan University, I kept it quiet. I wanted to be normal. I didn't want people looking at me saying, "Oh my God, this girl is crazy," because that's the first term out of someone's mouth. Is you crazy, you're psycho. I didn't want that. I just wanted to be able to go to class, get my education, and get a job.
Yeah.
Because back then I was afraid of losing my independence. They throw you in a mental hospital, and it's so hard to get out of those. Um, and so I just said, okay, no, I want to be normal. I have depression. I do have to take medication, but it's not no one's business but mine. I didn't stay at the dorm. I was in an off-campus apartment, so it was easy to cover up what was going on. And so for about 10 years, I would say about 10, 11 years, I was able to keep it quiet. It didn't start to come really to the forefront until I was in an abusive relationship. I was in a physically abusive relationship for 6 years. He actually had severe mental health issues. He had PTSD. He was in the military. He was just very abusive. He started off verbally and mentally and emotionally abusive, and then it changed into physical. And so after that, my mental health really started to decline. I started to show symptoms at work. My coworkers were starting to notice. I was trying to pretend, helping other people, working on cases, and I was having a mental breakdown at my desk. Um, I had my second attempt. I want to say at 32. I landed in the mental hospital, and that's when it started to not become a secret anymore. My second attempt landed me in a mental institution for about a week, and that's when it was like, you can't keep this quiet.
Yeah.
Um, I noticed as I started talking more about my struggles is when people started to stigmatize and judge more. So I started to make it quiet again. I didn't want people to know. I moved out of state for a little bit, came back. I took care of my dad who had a massive stroke during that time. And so it was just kind of easy to kind of hide literally what was going on with me. Last year, I was tired of everyone thinking that I was strong.
Yeah.
You get to a point where it's just a breaking point. My grandmother had died. My dad had passed 3 years prior. And I was having issues with a guy I was dating. He had gotten someone else pregnant. I was transitioning from a stressful job to back to my case management job because I had left for a little bit to work in finance. And I couldn't handle life anymore. I was tired of people putting everything on me. And so one day I can't tell you exactly what pushed me to do that, but one day I got on Facebook Live and for 45 minutes I told everybody what I was struggling with. I didn't sugarcoat it. I was just very open with it. I just said I'm tired. I That morning before I got on Facebook Live, I had told everybody I was getting ready to attempt that day. Because I was just tired of everybody putting so much on me and I just could not handle it anymore. And so I just felt like at that time for peace, because that's how we look at it, right? It's peace.
Yeah.
There's no more pain. So to take the pain away and for peace, I was ready to go. I kept making the statements. My dad is waiting for me. My grandma, she's at the door. And so it was very vocal. I was very vocal with that. But that's what pushed me to be open. And after that, it was like I was getting a flood of DMs and phone calls. I'm like you. I'm struggling with depression or bipolar. I had 3 people, well, about 5 people say that I saved their life that day because they were getting ready to attempt. So it dawned on me that sharing your story and being vulnerable is what's helping others feel strong enough to share theirs and go get help.
Yeah.
And so that's what pushed me to be very open, very vulnerable, and very raw about exactly what was happening to me, what had happened to me in the past, and what my healing journey was going to look like. Because I believe that by sharing your story, regardless of how that story looks, you are saving someone else while you're saving yourself because it's
Yeah.
healing to always be able to talk about it. And so there's always going to be stigmas and judgment. I got a lot of backlash months later because of it. Um, but I still push through because, as you see me, I'm talking to you very intelligently. Um, so being diagnosed with a mental illness doesn't stop who you are. It's not who you are. It's just a part of you, but
Yeah.
it doesn't define you. So that's why I say if you are strong enough, tell one person that you trust. I always say trust because trust is a strong word. Tell one person that you trust, and then go from there. You do not have to be like me, because at that point I didn't care who knew, because
Yeah.
like I said, I was exhausted. So that's pretty much what pushed me to be more vulnerable in
Yeah.
that moment.
So we do only have about like a few minutes left. So I want
Mhm.
to ask you one last question, and
Okay.
hopefully, next time um, we'll be able to sit down and have a more longer conversation without internet problems. But this is the last question. Identity is something that everyone grapples with, and many people don't see individuals who experience mental illness or mental health issues as human beings. Who are you in your rawest, innermost layer, and who are you at your core?
So for me, at my innermost layer, Andrea is, I would say she's extremely strong at her core. On the outside and the surface, people think that I'm emotional, I'm weak, and I don't have a voice. In my innermost most core, I am extremely vocal. I am extremely strong. I'm a beautiful person,
Yes.
despite all. Um, Sometimes I struggle with using the word survivor, but I am a survivor of my circumstances. Being molested at 8, being bullied at 13, and then going through 4 suicidal attempts. You have to be a strong individual to be able to overcome a lot of that. And so I'm an overcomer in my innermost self. A lot of people think I'm ashamed of my diagnoses. And honestly, I am not. I am a beautiful person. I have nothing to be ashamed of. A loving person. I know, as well as for me and for other women, that we are deserving of loving and healthy relationships and
Yes.
friendships. And so I don't have anything to be ashamed of. So I feel like in my innermost core, I'm a leader, and it's starting to shine through just a little bit more every single day. Um, I still have moments, and those are layers that people don't often get to see. I still have my moments because my healing journey is not linear. It's very
Yes.
complicated. Um, I still have my thoughts. I still have to go to therapy every single week. I'm still on medication to be able to survive and manage it because it's stable. But I'm very smart. A lot of people don't assume that I'm smart, but I'm I'm very smart, very educated, but I'm very, very smart. I'm intelligent. Um, but innermost, I'm just me. I identify with just being me. And I love that for me. For a long time, I wanted to be someone that was accepted by everybody. I wanted to be someone that was loved by everybody. I wanted to feel like I was enough and worthy enough to be around other people and by everybody. And I love me. I accept me at my rawest form when I'm crying in the shower, when I'm frustrated, when my depression is taking over, when my anxiety is starting to kick up into overdrive. I still love me. I am who I am. And you either gonna take me and meet me where I am, or we can leave each other in the dust. But I
Yes.
love I love me. I don't identify as I'm a Black woman who has a mental illness, but I'm also educated and I live in society just like everybody else. I have family just like everybody else. And quite frankly, no one would know anything unless I told them. So I think that's what I identify the most as. It's just being me,
Thank
not
you
someone
so
with a
much.
mental illness. You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you so much for allowing me to have this interview with you and like be in this space with you that's like very intimate and vulnerable. So I really appreciate that.
Oh, you're welcome. Anytime, anytime. If if any women want to know more, of course they can follow me on Instagram and Facebook on
Yes.
Healing Through Vulnerability. I also have a website, healingthroughvulnerability.com. I'm an open book. I do have my interview on Conversations with Tim Bridge on YouTube as well. It goes a little bit more in depth with my story. I also have a documentary that I filmed, so I'll be posting that on my YouTube page as well, Healing Through Vulnerability. So we are in the fight here. We are in the fight. We're going to break the stigma eventually, and we're going to start getting people the help that they need.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And thank you so much for having me.
Of
I was so
course.
excited for this interview. So thank you so much.
Have a great day.
Thank you. You too.